Why Good People Are Fools. Fyodor Dostoevsky. The idiot, when goodness backfires. Imagine living in a world where sincerity feels like a threat. And kindness is mistaken for weakness. Welcome to Awake Within, a space where we dive beneath the mask society demands, and confront the silent tragedy of staying true in a pragmatic world. In this video, we explore the story of Prince Myshkin, a soul who dares to exist without masks, facing rejection, betrayal, and loneliness, not because he was wrong, but because the world fears true goodness. If you've ever felt out of place for being too kind, too honest, or too trusting, you are not broken. You are rare. Let's walk together on the journey of protecting your inner light, healing from rejection, and awakening the quiet revolution within. Entering the masked world, when sincerity becomes alienated. Imagine stepping into a crowded room where everyone wears a mask. There are artificial smiles, calculating frowns, but not a single genuine face to be seen. This is not merely a room, it is a miniature reflection of the world we live in. A world where masks have become the default rule for survival. Where sincerity is a luxury, and anyone refusing to hide themselves is quickly labeled foolish, weak, and out of place. In that space, imagine a person appearing, without a mask, without concealment, without deceit, without calculation. He is not merely different, he is a challenge to the invisible structure the crowd has worked together to maintain. And so, without a word being spoken, the crowd begins to ostracize, ridicule, and even push this person beyond the boundaries of acceptance. Prince Myshkin, the protagonist of The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky, is the embodiment of such a person. With a pure heart, boundless compassion, and absolute sincerity, Myshkin steps into the upper-class society of 19th-century Russia like a lost star amid a sky filled with smoke. He carries no weapons but kindness. No strategies but honesty. And the result is not admiration but relentless injury. Myshkin's story is not merely a personal tragedy. It is a stark reminder of how the world treats innocence. The sincere soul steps into the masked world like a fragile candle in a fierce wind. That small flame not only risks being extinguished but also becomes a threat that unsettles the false fires surrounding it. Putting ourselves in Myshkin's position, we must ask. If we choose to live without a mask, how long could we endure? How much pain could we bear? And would we have the courage to keep our light burning even as darkness closes in? In a world where most people have learned to survive through pretense, pure sincerity becomes a silent act of revolution. And perhaps the first step toward healing is to accept that feeling alienated is not a sign of failure, but a sign that we have chosen light in a world accustomed to darkness. A harsh reality. When morality is no longer the standard for acceptance. We grow up with stories praising kindness, honesty, and compassion. We are taught that living kindly will earn love, that honesty will earn trust, and that compassion will be rewarded. But step by step, reality reveals a different lesson. Morality is no longer the standard for acceptance in this world. Those beautiful virtues are only celebrated when they do not obstruct others' personal interests. Like Prince Myshkin, we realize that the world does not operate according to idealistic principles. Those who attain power and social acclaim are not always the kind or the honest ones. They are the ones who understand the social game, knowing when to appear kind, when to conceal their motives, when to act coldly without remorse. True kindness, when devoid of calculation, becomes misplaced and vulnerable in the ruthless game of power. Niccolò Machiavelli long ago saw through this mechanism. He wrote that a ruler must be prepared to act immorally when necessary to maintain power. Because the world does not reward goodness, it rewards results. And in practice, this remains true today. Prince Myshkin either could not understand, or more accurately, refused to understand, those unspoken rules. He did not know how to pretend, nor did he know how to hide his purity behind layers of masks. He walked straight into high society, believing that goodness would be enough to connect people. But that world has no place for an unguarded heart. He was used, misunderstood, and ultimately crushed. If we live kindly but are treated with contempt, if we are honest but betrayed, should we abandon the best parts of ourselves to blend into a world that values cunning over sincerity? This is the profound pain that pure souls must face. And within that pain emerges a brutal truth: living true to one's morals is not the easy path. It is lonely, often heavy with injustice, and can make one question their very choices. Yet it is precisely in these darkest moments that true inner strength begins to form. When kindness is no longer celebrated, when sincerity no longer brings immediate rewards, only those who deeply understand their own worth can remain steadfast against the darkness. And that is also the first step toward the deepest awakening, realizing that we are kind not to be accepted. We are kind because it is the non-negotiable essence of our soul. When kindness illuminates hypocrisy, and the price of purity. Pure kindness is not merely a personal virtue. In a world of masks, it becomes an unintended mirror exposing what others try to hide. When someone acts with absolute sincerity, they strip away the refuge for the hypocrisies and moral compromises others have long rationalized. Prince Myshkin did not judge anyone, nor did he demand change. He simply existed, with an unguarded, pure soul. Yet his very presence, without a single accusation, made those around him feel uneasy. In the light of sincerity, the hidden shadows can no longer conceal themselves. When confronted with purity, many people do not find peace. Instead of gratitude, they react with resistance, avoidance, or denial. To accept such light would mean confronting the selfishness and falsehoods within themselves, something few are willing to do. Thus, the price of kindness is not loud insults, but silent isolation. It is the sense of being pushed to the margins of the world simply for daring to live authentically. In that moment, pure souls must make a choice: either don a mask to blend in, or continue to exist as a solitary light, embracing the inevitable wounds. Doubt creeps in: is kindness still meaningful if it only brings suffering? Is faith in goodness merely naive? Yet even in that darkness, a quiet strength begins to emerge. Those who are brave enough to bear the price of kindness discover a profound kind of freedom, freedom from the need for approval, freedom from the fear of exclusion. Above all, the freedom to remain true to oneself, regardless of the world's judgment. In this unwavering existence, true kindness becomes a silent revolution, a revolution powerful enough to ignite lost souls wandering in the masked world. The deep insecurity of social psychology. Why good people are rejected. To understand why people like Prince Myshkin are often rejected by society, we must look deeper into the psychological structure of human relationships. On the surface, we praise kindness and sincerity. But in reality, relationships often operate on hidden bargains: giving and receiving, expectation and reciprocation, calculation and compromise. In such a world, pure kindness becomes irrational. Myshkin gives without demanding in return, forgives without harboring resentment, remains honest even when it costs him. His presence breaks the unspoken game everyone else is playing, rendering the implicit rules meaningless. Thus, instead of being welcomed, he is viewed with suspicion. Psychology calls this phenomenon cognitive dissonance, the internal conflict when a person's beliefs and actions are no longer aligned. When someone like Myshkin appears, he forces others to confront the falsehoods they have long accepted. And rather than change, the instinctive reaction is to remove the one who exposed the crack. It's not that people hate goodness, but pure goodness makes people feel exposed. It reminds them of the ideals they have abandoned, of the compromises they made to survive. And that deep insecurity turns into rejection. Ask yourself, how many times have we heard stories of kind-hearted individuals being betrayed, exploited, or isolated? How many times have we felt uneasy before someone so good, so pure, that it made us question what we ourselves have lost along the path to adulthood? This is not the fault of kindness. It is the fear of souls that have grown accustomed to darkness. In that realization, healing begins. By understanding that being rejected is not proof that kindness is wrong, but proof that even a small light can unsettle the darkest corners. And those who hold on to their light in such a world, even amid loneliness, are performing a remarkable act, rekindling hope, not only for themselves, but for all those who have forgotten that light ever existed. Unconditional kindness, the strength of those who refuse to play power games. In a world where every relationship is quietly entangled with power and self-interest, unconditional kindness appears as an alien being. It does not bargain, does not demand reciprocity, does not set psychological traps to coerce gratitude. And for this very reason, it is not easily accepted. Prince Myshkin entered the aristocratic world of Russia as someone who refused to play power games. He did not know how to manipulate others' emotions, how to conceal his true motives, nor did he harbor any ambition to climb the ladders of prestige. He offered affection, kindness, and forgiveness, not as a strategy, but as an inseparable part of his nature. This made him dangerous in the eyes of those who thrived on calculation. For a person who cannot be bribed, cannot be threatened, cannot be controlled by fear or reward, is someone the power structure cannot manage. True kindness, when unaccompanied by expectation, cannot be weaponized. And in a society driven by the exchange of interests, it becomes a silent threat. How ironic. The world yearns for sincerity but fears it when faced directly. For the kind-hearted do not play by the old rules. They do not demand submission, do not build loyalty based on fear, nor trade affection. They exist as living reminders that humans can choose to love without conditions. Myshkin did not try to change the world. He simply remained true to himself. Yet his non-participation caused greater disruption than any coercive act could. He forced people to ask themselves, why do I need power games to feel valuable? Within unconditional kindness lies a quiet strength. It does not conquer through force but moves through patience, the ability to stand firm amidst storms of calculation without losing the original innocence within. True strength does not lie in dominating others. It lies in not allowing the world to corrupt the goodness inside us. And one who holds on to unconditional kindness in a world of bargains possesses a power that no crown could ever grant. Paying the price for not wearing a mask, the tragedy of living authentically in a pragmatic world. In a world where masks are the default code for survival, refusing to wear one is an act of courage, but also an act fraught with risk. Prince Myshkin, with his unguarded innocence, entered society without a single layer of defense. He brought kindness, honesty, and unconditional goodwill, and confronted a system that operates solely on interests and pretense. The world did not know what to do with someone like him. He was not an opponent to defeat, not a pawn to manipulate, nor a controllable ally. He was an anomaly, a presence that defied the familiar rules of the power game. And so, he became a target for ridicule, suspicion, and ultimately exclusion. Myshkin's tragedy is not merely the downfall of an individual but a profound indictment of a society long accustomed to treating pretense as natural and perceiving genuine goodness as a threat. But that tragedy also poses a haunting question to each of us, when facing the world. Will we choose to wear a mask to survive, or pay the price of living authentically? Is the suffering worthwhile if it means preserving our original self? In that pain, a silent awakening occurs. Realizing that the greatest resistance may not lie in changing the world, but in refusing to let the world change the best parts of ourselves. Choosing to live authentically in a pragmatic world is not naivety. It is a higher form of courage. When kindness requires no recognition, a pure beauty that cannot be bought. Deep down, most of us yearn for recognition. We want our kindness to be understood. Our goodwill to be appreciated. But Prince Myshkin chose a different path, a path where kindness is no longer tied to others' eyes or applause. He was not kind to be loved. He was not honest to be praised. He was kind because he could not be otherwise. And this unconditional quality, this detachment from any reward, rendered Myshkin's soul beautifully pure. Unbuyable, non-negotiable. The world, so accustomed to bargaining, felt uneasy before someone like him. In the social game, kindness is often tied to expectations, giving to receive. Being good to gain approval. When faced with someone who demanded nothing, calculated nothing, the hidden contract was shaken. Perhaps that is why Myshkin's kindness was misunderstood. He was seen as naive, as a fool who could not protect himself. But in truth, he embodied a form of strength the world rarely recognizes. The strength of absolute freedom from the need for acknowledgement. Myshkin's kindness needed no spotlight. It existed quietly like a small flame. Persistently burning in the cold wind, neither swelling with praise nor extinguished by neglect. And perhaps, that is the deepest essence of kindness, a beauty that cannot be bought. Untouched by the world's responses, requiring no audience to persist. When we reach that level of kindness, where being kind is as natural as breathing, asking for no reward, we are not just healing ourselves. We are preserving the most precious thing humanity has, the capacity for unconditional love, even when the world has forgotten it. The silent endurance of light, the indelible impact of kindness. It may seem, in the moment, that kindness loses. Kind souls like Prince Myshkin may be mocked, excluded. Even crushed by a world that prizes calculation over sincerity. Yet even when wounded, true kindness does not disappear. It silently leaves deep imprints in the hearts of those it touched. Myshkin did not seek to change others. He did not preach or impose. He simply existed, humbly, sincerely, like a small candle in the night. And through his mere presence, he inadvertently left behind in others a subtle unease, a yearning for something beautiful they once had but may have lost. Some things do not need to win to become immortal. Some influences do not need to be loud to be profound. Kindness does not argue. Does not force, but it is remembered. It does not claim victory by power, but by the quiet endurance of unconditional goodness. Those who shunned Myshkin might forget him amid the rush of daily life. But when darkness once again envelopes their hearts, when the emptiness of calculated relationships becomes unbearable, the memer why of a person who once lived with full sincerity will return, quietly reminding them that light once existed. The impact of kindness is not measured by immediate success but by the slow, transformative changes it stirs within people. A kind word may be forgotten on the surface, but its echo sometimes lasts a lifetime. Thus, even if the world rejects the light, that light continues to shine, patiently, without seeking acceptance or glory. It exists because it is itself. And in that silent endurance, kindness achieves its most profound victory. Standing between two worlds, wisdom to survive or protecting the inner light. In the end, Prince Myshkin faced an impossible choice: either learn to adapt, to wear a mask and blend into the world, or accept being crushed by the purity he carried. But he did not change. He chose to keep his bare heart, even though it meant enduring pain. This is also the crossroads that each of us must face sooner or later. When we realize that honesty can lead to hurt, kindness can be exploited, and love can be betrayed, we ask ourselves: should we become wiser to protect ourselves? Should we learn to hide our inner light just to avoid being wounded? The world encourages us to bargain, be shrewd to survive, compromise to stay safe. But sometimes, the price of survival is the loss of one's own essence. Each time we conceal our kindness, we abandon a piece of our light. And thus, little by little, we push ourselves into the very darkness we once despised. Myshkin's story reminds us There are values that cannot be bargained. There are inner lights that must not be extinguished out of fear. Not because the world deserves such goodness, but because we ourselves deserve to live true to who we are. Choosing to protect the light within is not an easy path. It is a journey full of loss and loneliness. Yet along that path, we find the deepest meaning of freedom, freedom from the world's corruption, freedom to continue loving even when that love is not returned. Holding on to our light, even when surrounded by darkness, may be one of the quietest yet most magnificent victories a human being can achieve. Healing from heartache, when kindness is rejected. We must embrace ourselves. The deepest wounds do not come from enemies, but from the moments when we offer our bare hearts to the world only to receive indifference, coldness, or betrayal in return. When kindness is rejected, the pain seeps into the deepest parts of the soul, making us question whether sincerity is still worthwhile. Healing in these moments is not about forgetting the pain, nor about convincing ourselves that the world is fairer than it is. Healing begins with accepting that kindness will not always be welcomed, and that this does not diminish its value. When we are wounded, the natural response is to close our hearts, to build walls, to vow never to give again. But in doing so, we not only shield ourselves from pain, we also sever ourselves from our inner light. Instead, we must learn to embrace ourselves. Even when the world turns its back, we must view our wounds as evidence of courage, the courage to love in a world that so easily chooses indifference. The courage to continue being kind, even when misunderstood. Healing does not come from waiting for others to recognize our worth. Healing comes when we recognize it ourselves. That our kindness does not require anyone's approval. It is a part of our being, a part that cannot be taken away simply because the world is not ready to receive it. And in embracing those wounds, we grow. Not by becoming harder, but by becoming deeper. By turning pain into the raw material that allows our inner light to burn brighter, stronger, and more quietly resilient. Forging inner strength, turning pain into personal power. No one matures without carrying wounds. But what separates strong souls from those who collapse under adversity is not who suffers less, but how they transform their pain into inner strength. Prince Myshkin, though wounded deeply, did not allow the world to taint his heart. He did not respond to coldness with hatred. Nor did he let betrayal kill his faith in humanity. He endured, not through blind resignation, but through a quiet strength, the strength of a soul that refuses to let the world define its worth. Forging inner strength requires accepting that wounds are an inevitable part of living authentically. Every time we are misunderstood, every time we give without being repaid, every time we are disappointed, if we choose to face it instead of fleeing, we grow stronger. True strength is not a heart that is never wounded. It is a heart that dares to love again after each breaking. It is the ability to stand firm in kindness, even when surrounded by cold calculation. Turning pain into strength does not happen in a moment. It is a slow, silent process. It is the daily choice to hold on to light rather than compromise with darkness. It is learning to place our trust in the value within ourselves, rather than letting external judgment decide who we are. And in this forging process, we not only heal, we are reborn. Each crack in our heart becomes a place where light can enter, illuminate, and ignite a new flame, stronger, deeper, and more invulnerable. Awakening the inner self, when your existence becomes a silent revolution. Some revolutions do not ring out with gunfire or etch themselves in manifestos. Some revolutions occur silently, within the hearts of individuals, when they decide to protect their inner light even when surrounded by darkness. Prince Myshkin did not change the world with grand speeches or force. He did not shatter the power structures with noisy actions. He simply existed, with an unbroken heart, unconditional kindness, and uncompromising sincerity. And through that quiet existence, he became unforgettable. Every person who lives true to their inner light, no matter how small, creates a quiet upheaval. A kind word. A selfless act, an unconditional forgiveness, these all plant silent seeds in the souls of others. They may not sprout immediately. But over time, they can crack even the coldest walls. The awakening of the inner self begins when we realize, we do not need to conquer the world. We only need to ensure that the world does not extinguish the fire within us. And in that very journey, we quietly create cracks in the heavy veil of indifference covering society. Every choice not to compromise with darkness, every time we continue to love when we could have grown bitter, is a silent but powerful declaration that light still exists. You do not need to wait for the world to recognize your worth. Simply existing as a true, authentic soul is the greatest change you can bring to the world. For in an age where falsehood is glorified, kindness, sincerity, and the inner light are the most beautiful revolutions of all. We live in a world where pretense is celebrated and genuine goodness is often seen as weakness. Yet through the journey of Prince Myshkin, we are reminded that inner light, even small and fragile, can still illuminate a darkened world simply by existing. You may never be recognized. Your kindness may be misunderstood. Your sincerity may be exploited. But even so, the value of those things remains undiminished. For true light does not require applause to continue shining. Each person who holds on to kindness in a cold world, each person who chooses authenticity in a masked society, is writing a miraculous story, the story of souls who refuse to surrender, of people who affirm silently but indelibly. No matter how the world changes, I will remain true to myself. And perhaps, there is no greater victory than that.